No, there is no difference. Once I'm on a bike and a wheelchair strapped in, I'm equal to anyone else on the road.
And don't be in a rush to do this job. You might be putting $400 or $600 worth of tires on a car. You don't want to rush it and compromise that job.
Motoring 91 is brought to you by Quaker State. The big Q stands for quality. Always has, always will.
This week we are in the Big Apple, New York City. Hello everybody. Now, I don't care how much you enjoy driving. I would think this is one city in the world where you do not want to drive your car. Now they say a cab is the best mode of transportation, but have you ever tried to get a cab in New York? Good luck. Maybe a motorcycle is the answer, I don't know. But speaking of motorcycles, we're now going to join Steve Grant. And recently he met a gentleman whose motorcycle is more than transportation, it's freedom.
Motorcycle sidecars are not something we see every day, but when we do see them, they're usually attached to police motorcycles. That's because they're great for balance and they can extend the patrolling season well into the winter months. But motorcycle sidecars also serve to open a door for a large section of our population that would normally never experience the thrill of riding a motorcycle.
Well, it's kind of funny to see me on a bike again, but that's how I got into the wheelchair. In 1972, I made one wrong turn, went through the ditch, hit a post on the other side, and woke up in the hospital with a broken back. My accident was a relatively severe one because I ended up in a wheelchair, but for the same reason, if you were to trip and fall, does that mean you can't get up on your feet again? You have to. Biking is something I really enjoy doing, and there's really no reason why I can't do it now.
If his wheelchair wasn't strapped to the side of his bike, you would never know that Tom Proszowski was disabled, and that's the way he prefers it. His goal is to share the exhilaration he gets out of driving with other wheelchair-bound thrill seekers.
I'm aware of maybe 6 disabled individuals in our province who ride, maybe 2 or 3 in Quebec. And I read some stories from guys in the States who also ride, but it's a relatively small number. I am doing my best to make sure that other people with disabilities are aware of the option. I have a certificate from a recognized course to teach other people how to ride bikes with sidecars. And I have tried that with 2 or 3 other disabled people, and a couple of them are already riding.
The sidecar provides the necessary balance, but beyond that, Tom Suzuki has very few modifications.
The rear brake was foot operated as any other bike would be. I moved that over to my left hand. So the left hand now operates both the clutch and the back brake. And front brake is of course where it was. And the shifter, all I've done for the shifter is attach the wooden dowel, the stick, to the normal shifter lever, which extends between the tank and my leg. And I just pull and push on that to shift gears. Unfortunately, I have to let go of the handlebars to affect the shifting. But it can be done, and relatively safely. I've been driving for over 5 years now without any problem that way.
Unfortunately, it took a very serious accident for Tom to fully appreciate the importance of safety and motorcycles. But now he has the chance to share his experience with others. This community college offers a motorcycle safety program for future riders. And one of the top instructors is Tom.
Good start up, lousy ride. Feet up on the pegs at all times, knees in the tank. Eyes up, right? Well, through a mutual friend, I met the head instructor of the course, and he told me all the processes one needs to go through to get into it. And I guess no different than all the other instructors, I just felt that I really enjoy the sport, and I would like to put something back into the sport and make sure those new drivers or riders out there are doing it right. So perhaps the bottom line is that I don't want other people to get into the situation that I'm in because they didn't know how to get out of it. A lot of people have really bad habits of riding with 2 fingers on the levers. When you go for brakes or clutch, you go like that. Bad thing. Let's say you fall down. Aha! You just lost 2 fingers.
That's really good, Tom. We got that on film, too.
Not a good idea.
Safety, obviously, a prime concern of this course because you drill it into them and you drill it into them. When the students look at Tom and they can see what could happen when you're not paying attention or when someone else isn't paying attention, obviously it hits home when they take a look at him then.
Yeah, it does, and the students appreciate it more, you know, when they can see, and Tom explains to them what happened, and they realize that yes, there's a possibility that this could happen to me. And I believe the reason the students are here is to learn, the safe way to drive a motorcycle. And this is where they start off, and they continue their career out on the road with safe driving habits. Tom, of course, explaining to them what may happen.
I met Tom at the beginning of the year when we have our training, and it was a bit unusual to see a paraplegic wanting to join up for the instructor course. My first thought was, does this mean I have to do most of the work this weekend? As a matter of fact, it was almost impossible to keep up with Tom. He's enthusiastic, he's a good teacher, and I hope that he's an inspiration for other people who are also paraplegics to know that the sport of motorcycling is available for them also, and they can have a really good time with it.
Tom's dedication to the sport doesn't end with the weekend classes. On his spare time, he's tutoring Yvonne, a paraplegic and a first-time biker.
Yvonne started out as a passenger. I took her up for a ride one time. She lived in Sudbury at the time, so we took some back roads and went through the mountains and windy roads, and she really fell in love with the experience. So I suppose if you really enjoy being a passenger, the next step is, can I really ride myself? The answer to that is yeah, definitely. If someone has enough hand function to pull in the levers, and ability to transfer, I can teach them how to ride. If they can't transfer, there is also another type of a sidecar which can be purchased, and that allows you to stay in your wheelchair. It's not something that I'd like to do a hard sell on. However, if you are a disabled individual and you have an affinity for wind in your hair and a sense of freedom and a little bit of adventure, biking may just be the sport for you. And all I want to say is follow it up, because it can be done.
There is no doubt in my mind that BMW build a fine automobile. The question to be answered is whether the 735iL can hold its market share now that the Japanese have unloaded both barrels.
Test Drive with Graham Fletcher.
The other day we received this brochure in the mail from Lexus, and it says if you're going to make a car to take on the legendary high-performance sedans, just making it equal means you've failed. This prompted us to go and get one of these legendary sedans, and so on Test Drive this week we look at the BMW 735iL.
The L tacked onto the end of the BMW 735i designation tells you that this is the long wheelbase version. The advantages of this stretch platform are twofold: improved ride comfort and more legroom for the rear passengers. BMW have earned the reputation for being a driver's car. Sit behind the wheel and you begin to understand why. All primary and secondary driver controls are arranged such that it takes minimal effort to read, adjust or set anything. There are, however, a few misses. The steering column lacks a tilt feature and the power mirror controls are not labelled left and right, and so you must play with the adjustment to see which mirror moves. On the positive side, there are two sets of climate controls. This allows the front passengers to accommodate their personal preference. The radio offers superb sound quality, and the fully articulated driver's seat, complete with 3-position memory, offers complete comfort. Safety also abounds. There are large knee bolsters and the obligatory airbag. The dash is complete in every respect, right down to a row of warning lights that when illuminated, the dash resembles a Christmas tree.
One of the more unique features of this BMW is the fact that the rear seat belts, which are 3-point, come over the opposite shoulder to the normal type of belt. The reason for this, in an impact, instead of being thrown sideways and colliding with the other passenger in the back, you're held in your own little cell. Now, this makes a lot of sense to me.
The trunk is huge and well shaped, although the liftover is a little on the high side. Under the hood you'll find BMW's 3.5 litre straight-six engine. In the regular 735i, this engine proves to be fairly quick, but when you add the additional weight associated with the long wheelbase version, it takes the edge off the performance. This is not to say the IL is a slouch, but when compared to either the Lexus or Infiniti, it definitely takes a back seat. We recorded acceleration times of just over 10 seconds. Matched with this engine is a superb 3-mode automatic transmission. Everyday use dictates the economy or normal mode. The second or sport mode delays the upshifts to improve acceleration. It also cancels overdrive, compromising fuel economy. The third mode is a true manual. Put it into manual 3 and you pull away in third. This mode is very handy in slippery conditions or hilly terrain. During the brake test, the anti-lock brake system put on a stellar performance. This, when added to the great set of tyres and a suspension setup that minimises the amount of dive, leaves you with a very reassured feeling. In the pylon test, the 735 suspension system performed exceptionally well. The amount of body roll is controlled very well, and there is very little understeer even when pushed close to the limit. It was in the pylon test, however, that the Bimmer's biggest shortcoming showed up. I could beat the power steering easily. In a succession of fast directional changes, it locks up momentarily. In an emergency maneuver, this trait could pose quite a problem. My pet peeve with this Bimmer is to do with the fuel economy gauge you're looking at. During the road test, I found the information it gave more distracting than I did beneficial. And anyway, if you buy a car like this, you certainly don't buy it for the fuel economy, so it makes the information rather mute. Now to the scoreboard to see how I rated the rest of the 1991 BMW 735iL. In stretching the 735, BMW have added just enough weight to take the edge off the performance. While the car performs adequately, running to the 100k mark in just over 10 seconds, it could do with the V12 engine you'll find in the 750, but then cost becomes a big factor. From the suspension side, the 735 is all that a Bimmer should be, but given the power steering problem noted earlier, I found the overall characteristics somewhat lacking. The entire car works in harmony, allowing the driver to slow the car to a halt in just 116 feet. These stopping distances were achieved without the need to activate the ABS system. We recorded a very quiet 69 decibels. Only when you tromp the gas does the noise level increase appreciably, probably because the car could do with a little more power. During the test, we averaged 12.9 litres per 100 kilometres, which is not bad at all for a car that is heavy, large and luxurious. There is no doubt in my mind that BMW build a fine automobile. The question to be answered is whether the 735iL can hold its market share now that the Japanese have unloaded both barrels. My suspicion is that they can, but they're going to have their work cut out for them.
We're now going to leave the streets of Manhattan and head to the shop and join Bill Gardner.
If you find yourself constantly adding air to any one of your tires or all of your tires in cold weather, there's a darn good chance that you've got a rim leak. Tubeless tires have to seal properly between the bead and the rim flange, and that area often becomes dirty or rusty in many of today's cars. And it's important that that area is clean and painted and protected when you mount a new tire. Now this tire is almost full tread depth, yet it's leaking badly around the rim. There's no punctures in this tire, so somebody mounted this tire on top of rust or dirt, and that's where it's leaking, around the rim. Now we're going to remove the tire from the bead. Any of you guys in the trade have probably noticed already that this is a pretty archaic tire machine, but I kind of like it because you won't damage the bead of any tire with this machine because you're doing it by hand. There's no power assist. And we're going to remove the tire, and then we're going to see that rim flange area that we have to clean up. And you'll see, you can actually see on this one the some of the rust caked onto the bead of the tire right here. And that's the rust that's causing our air leakage around the rim flange. You can see it around here. It's quite rough, and we just can't get a good seal between that bead rubber and the rim flange. Now here's a rim that we've already sanded down and painted. We've allowed the paint to dry overnight. We're ready to mount the tire. Now I use a brake lathe to do this. I mount the wheel right on the brake lathe, and I sand this flange area with a really coarse piece of sandpaper, and I spray paint it while it's still turning. Now if you don't have a machine like that, you can do the same job or just as good a job with a coarse piece of sandpaper and work your way around both sides of the rim flange till you get it clean. Of course you have to paint it with some good anti-rust paint. Most of these paints come in aerosol and they don't require a primer, and that will prevent that area from corroding again. Another thing we're going to do is we're going to apply a special compound to the bead area of the tire. It's called no rim rust, and it's a material that has the consistency of a grease, but it's not petroleum based. It doesn't harm rubber, in other words, and we're going to use that as a bead lubricant. We're just going to smear a little bit of it around the bead area of the tire, and that will prevent any rust from ever occurring in that area. Now, a lot of tire shops use a material called Bead Sealer, which is actually a rubber adhesive that glues the bead right to the rim flange, and that's not a good idea. It's a quick way of repairing the problem, but it's not the best way to repair it. Now, what I've showed you today is a lot of work. It's messy work, and it's probably something that you're going to have to get involved with yourself to get the job done right. Not many guys at tire shops or mechanical repair garages are going to want to take the time to do this job properly. They're in a big rush to throw those tires on and send you out the door. So rotate your spare in and do it one at a time. And don't be in a rush to do this job. You might be putting $400 or $500, $600 worth of tires on a car. You don't want to rush it and compromise that job. Next week, we're going to talk about another thing that can really hurt your fuel economy, and that's engine drivability problems in cold weather. Just like these soft tires, they can rob you of fuel mileage. Till then, I'm Bill Gardner for Motoring 91.
If you do not install your car seat correctly, you're not going to be assured that that car seat is going to act like it's supposed to.
If you have any comments or suggestions, drop us a line at Motoring 91, Post Office Box 284, Station J, Toronto, Ontario, M4J 4Y1.
You know, we all know it's mandatory to wear a seatbelt when we're driving our car, but it's also the law that your child be secured in an approved car seat. But what do you look for when you're buying a car seat? Well, let's find out.
There's no question these pictures are horribly graphic, but they illustrate what could happen if your child is not protected by a certified restraint system in your car. It's not only basic common sense to have a car seat for your child, it's the law.
There are infant seats out there that are strictly for infants, and this particular car seat is for an infant from birth weight all the way up until about 20 pounds. And when parents bring their baby home from the hospital, they've got to make sure that the car seat is facing the rear of the vehicle and is properly installed according to the manufacturer's instructions. When parents are buckling their child in, the harness straps here should be fairly tight, and a good test as to how tight they should be against the baby is 2 flat fingers width space between the infant's chest and the harness straps. If there's too much slack, that's not doing your child much good, because the straps are meant to hold your baby in. Once you put your child into a toddler seat or a convertible seat, then they must turn around and face the front. And they stay in those seats until they're about 40 pounds or until they reach about 4 or 5 years of age. But a real good indication as to when they should come out of the car seat is when their ears are showing above the top of the car seat. Once that happens, you want to take your child out of that car seat, because it means that he or she is not getting enough adequate head and neck support. Now, as a toddler restraint, it faces the front of the vehicle and it sits upright. A lot of parents seem to feel a bit uncomfortable putting their children in an upright position because they feel that as infants they become accustomed to being in the reclined position. Children are very adaptable, and they soon find that this is just as comfortable. They can fall asleep and when it's in an upright position, just as they did when they were a baby. There is a lot of choice out there. I always recommend that parents bring their children along with them. Set their children in the car seats when they're in the store. See how the child feels, because she or he is going to be the one that's riding in it all the time. Now, the Tether Strap, it comes with every car seat sold on the market, every convertible or toddler restraint sold on the market, and it just affixes to the back of the car seat. And you simply extend it. You simply extend it directly behind the seating position. You don't want to put it over here or over here, it goes straight behind. It goes at a 45-degree angle, okay? Depending on the type of vehicle you have, if it's just a car, then it merely goes a very short distance to the parcel shelf at the back of the car. If you have a van, a station wagon, a hatchback, for example, then you'll want to affix that to the floor. This portion of the tether strap simply unclips, and you can take your car seat with you.
When shopping for a car seat, don't be scared off by the price. Some can be expensive, but there are far more important considerations than economics.
Well, I guess one factor they should consider is what their lives would be like without their children. If they're not properly restrained, or even restrained in a vehicle, and there is an accident, and the child dies or suffers a serious injury, how would they feel at that point? Why not take a step and buy a car seat? You can get them anywhere from $65 to $85, $95, and really, it's not a lot of money when you consider that it's your child's life that you're protecting.
Over the years, a number of car seats have been recalled for various safety adjustments. If you're not sure about the seat you own or the one you're shopping for, there are organizations you can call toll-free for information.
Last year, I went hunting for left-lane bandits. This year, I've got some other drivers in my sights. Next on Kenzie's Corner.
Kenzie's Corner with Jim Kenzie.
Last year, I told you about the left-lane bandits. Well, there's another kind of driver on our multi-lane freeways that bugs me, and those are the ones that make a typically Canadian political statement by driving right down the middle of the road. Now, maybe they think it's safe or something. They figure if there's a problem, they've got a lane on either side that they can dive into. But think about it. There might be a car or truck in one of those lanes. If you're in the right lane, you've got the shoulder to get onto, and that's bound to be clear. Remember, the first rule of military strategy is never expose both flanks at the same time. Now, some people say, well, I drive in the middle lane because I might have to pull over to let someone on at the next interchange. Come on, folks, the next interchange is 10 kilometers away. You've got lots of time to move over if you have to. Now, there may be some exceptions to the rule. Some stretches of the road, the right lane is so badly banged up because of the truck traffic that it's very uncomfortable to drive in. But for the most part, the signs that say, keep right except to pass, are telling you not only what's courteous and logical, but they're telling you what is the law. So, get over. This is Jim Kenzie.
One of the oldest subway systems in the world. We're in the New York City subway, and believe me, when you come to Manhattan, leave the car at home because this is still the best mode of transportation in the Big Apple. Well, I got a subway to catch. We'll see you next week for more stories on Motoring 91.
Motoring 91 is brought to you by Quaker State. The big Q stands for quality. Always has, always will.